So I wanted to respond to this comment that was left on my video about the potential risks to the Panama Canal posed by Russia and China by saying that in that video, I in no way meant to imply that China's interest in Africa was altruistic. Their interest in Africa is not altruistic. China is interested in Africa because they see it as a potential market, and they see it as a place where they could expand their sphere of influence. As to this commenter's assertion that China is looking for a place to offload their excess population, I mean, I suppose that's possible. I don't have any data or research on that, but my feeling is that China had a potential population problem that they solved in an extremely brutal way in the 70s and 80s. And if you want to know more about that, and I don't really recommend it, but if you want to know more about it, the documentary One Child Nation will scar you for life. And if you are postpartum or a parent of young children, I wouldn't watch it, because it details in some excessively graphic detail, like how they unalived around 800,000 of their own citizens at birth or just before. So, I would say they had a potential population problem. I don't think they have a population problem anymore. And environmentalists can come at me about this, but I get a little bit upset when we start talking about population, like excess population, because what excess population typically means is that women do not have bodily autonomy. Like, that's why we have excess population. There's no woman in the, okay, there may be a woman in the world who wants 18 kids, but there's just one. Most women do not want that. I'm going to throw it out there and say almost all women do not want that. So when we talk about population, what we're talking about is a deep and enduring lack of bodily autonomy for women. Sorry, that was a bit of a digression, but getting back to China and Africa, possibly they had a concern about excess population, but my guess is that they just saw a potential market. And what I kind of wanted to point out in the video about the Panama Canal is that I think China saw a potential market in Africa that the European and what other Western democracies didn't see. What Western democracies saw was a continent that was reeling after a couple hundred years of colonization, and they kind of looked at it and assumed that everything that could be taken already was. But I think what China saw was land for cheap, some natural resources, and population who would want to buy their products. So I think that China saw potential in Africa that the Western world did not, to the Western world's detriment. So that's the point I was trying to make.